Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachare Yamunatira Vanachare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachare Yamunatira Vanachare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Kunjaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare. Jai Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Shtotra Shri Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Shtotra Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Shyamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samaveda Guru Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai. Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So we're reading from Canto 9, Chapter 4, Text 26, chapter entitled Ambarish Maharaj Offended by Durvasa Muni. Sa itham bhakti Yogena tapo yuktena pativaha sva dharmena harim prinam sarvan kaman shanar jaha Saitam bhakti yogena tapo yuktena partivaha swadharmina harim prinan sarvan kaman shanajaha. Saitam bhakti yogena tapo yuktena partivaha Svadharmena harim prinan sarvan kaman shanajaha. Saitam bhakti yogena tapo yuktena partivaha Svadharmena harim prinan sarvan kaman shanajaha. Bhakti yogena tapo yuktena partivaha swadharmena harim prinan sarvan kaman shanajaho. Saitam bhakti yogena Savankanam shanajaho. Saitam bhakti yogena bhakti yogena Anyone else here? Top room. Bhakti Joe. Anyone online would like to chant this verse? Okay. So, word to word. Saha he, Ambarish Maharaj. Itham, in this way, Bhakti Yogena, by performing transcendental loving service to the Lord. Tapa Yuktena, which is simultaneously the best process of austerity. Partivaham, the king. Swadharmena, by his constitutional activities. Harim, unto the Supreme Lord. Prinan, satisfying. Sarvan, all varieties of. Kaman, material desires. Shanai, gradually. Jaha, gave up. Translation and the purport. The king of this planet, Maharaj Ambarish, thus performed devotional service to the Lord, and in this endeavor practiced severe austerity. Always satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead by his constitutional activities, he gradually gave up all material desires. Purport. Severe austerities in this practice of devotional service of many varieties. For example, in worshipping the deity in the temple, there are certainly laborious activities. This is how you say it, laborious? Yeah. Laborious activities. Shivigrahara dhana nityanana shingaratan mandira marjanada. One must decorate the deity, cleanse the temple, bring water from the Ganges and Yamuna, continue the routine work, perform arti many times, prepare first-class food for the deity, prepare dresses, and so on. In this way, one must constantly be engaged in various activities, and the heart labor involved is certainly an austerity. Similarly, the hard labor involved in preaching, preparing literature, preaching to atheistic men and distributing literature door to door is of course an austerity. Tapo yuktena, tapo divyam putraka. Such austerity is necessary. Yena sadvam shuddhyat. By such austerity in devotional service, one is purified of material existence. Kaman shanar jaha. Indeed, such austerity leads one to the constitutional position of devotional service. In this way, one can give up material desires, and as soon as one is freed from material desires, he is free from the repetition of birth and death, old age and disease. This is the end of the purport. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Mancha Kopatrubhisha Kripasindhabevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So thank you for this opportunity to speak on Srimad Bhagavatam. This is a really wonderful verse that glorifies Sankirtan Yagya in both ways of Archa Vigraha, or offering service to the deities, and also preaching, printing literature, and also distributing literature, which is a very important activity of our movement. And according to Srila Prabhupada and this purport, that is the best type of austerity that we can do. Tapo divyam putraka. So tapo divya means divine austerity. Austerity to participate in this wonderful Sankirtan Yagya is meant to purify us and give us transcendental pleasure and realization of the soul in relationship with Krishna, who is who we are and who is Krishna. And here Maharaj Ambarish is also wonderfully participating in this austerity of worshipping the deity. And the result of this participation, the result of this yagya, is freedom from material desires. Sarvan kaman shanai jaha. All the material desires are transformed into spiritual desires. We get a higher taste. That is the only possible way to replace material desires, or to give up material desires, is to get something that is better than material desires. So Maharaj Ambarish, he is detached from his opulent position as a king, from family and all the wealth and riches that he possesses. And he also worshipped the Brahmanas and took advice from them. And that is essential for the king, to take advice from the Brahmanas. Simply because a king is engaged in a lot of managerial activities that are related to the mode of passion. And so when we come in contact with the mode of passion, we get burned by it. Passion is like fire. You touch it and you get a little burn. So therefore, it is essential to participate in sadhana bhakti and spiritual activities for the king, and take advice from the Brahmanas. In this way, he can maintain a proper state of consciousness and not be affected too much by managing by passion, in other words. So, first, Srila Prabhupada mentions here is the one example of austerity is worshipping the deity in a temple. And it's not easy to worship the deity. We have to decorate the deity, make it look beautiful. Also clean the temple floor, or make sure that the altar is clean. And then Prabhupada says here, bring water from the Ganges and Yamuna. I guess we don't have to do that here. Of course, we have some bottled water. But here Prabhupada is saying something else. And it's an everyday activity. Many times we have to do this, perform arti and go on the altar. So prepare for first class food stuff also for the deity, to please the deity. Prepare the dresses. Make sure it's all arranged also. Since there's so many offerings and so many things to do, we need to have manpower. We need to have devotees to do it, to be able to do it. So it is in austerity, but it's very good for us to participate in that austerity. As mentioned in the 5th canto by Rishabhadev, is that this austerity is purifying us and gives us transcendental happiness. So in a few letters, Srila Prabhupada was talking about the importance of deity worship. One to Vishnujan Maharaj, he sent in November 4th, 1971. And he said that for spiritual life, chanting Hare Krishna is sufficient, but because we are habituated in unclean habits, we must have temple worship. So temple worship helps us to become free from those habits that are unclean. And then he said, Sankirtan will keep everyone's mind clean, and surely this quarreling will cease. So sometimes there might be some misunderstanding or quarrels in regards to performing even Sankirtan, I guess. Sometimes it could be some misunderstanding. And one thing I was realizing about this is that our movement is an incarnation of Krishna. So our movement has no faults. Like the practice in itself has no faults. It's a perfect practice of giving us the desired result. Love of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Prema Pumartha Mahan, given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So there's nothing wrong with the movement. But because we are conditioned living entities and we come in touch with that movement, with this movement, we bring in some faulty qualities and something that can affect the movement in an unclean way. So therefore, performing this yagyas, this austerities, is essential on an individual level, tapodivyam. That gives us more and more purity in our intention to serve Krishna. Another thing that Srila Prabhupada was saying is that worshipping the deities help us with always getting absorbed in Krishna, thinking of Krishna, purifying the mind, intelligence, and body. For example, when you get up in the morning and if you have to wake up the deities, it's the first thing on your mind. You're always conscious of it. If you chanting, your rounds, if you're chanting Hare Krishna, and then you have to address the deities after, it's also on your mind. And of course, what's on your mind when you think about worshipping the deity is that the form of the Lord is on your mind. So it makes the mind much easier to be Krishna conscious and focus on Krishna. And all the devotees who don't go on the altar, for example, they get a great opportunity and they feel happy to see the deity beautifully decorated. And it also helps us in receiving necessary impressions to be Krishna conscious throughout the day. Seeing the deity is important. Especially you realize that when you travel and you're away from the temple, you kind of miss the association of the devotees and seeing merciful Gaura-Nitai deities, Radha, Giridhari, Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra. Being in the presence of devotees and the deities is very purifying and inspiring. The more you decorate the temple or the deities beautifully, the more your heart will be beautiful. This is what Srila Prabhupada said to Pendarin also in one of the letters. So this is the first part of this text, is that austerities for the pleasure of the deities is essential for us. Then Srila Prabhupada mentions austerities in the sense of preaching this message of Krishna consciousness to others, which is also another way to be in touch with the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda and Gaura-Nitai, is when you preach Krishna consciousness, when you give this literature to people, it forces you to think of Krishna and forces you to be in good consciousness, in good Krishna consciousness. So chanting and preaching, they go together. Now what Srila Prabhupada says here is we are involved in preaching, preparing literature. So first thing is that you prepare the literature, you print literature, and then you deliver this printed literature to a particular place, an ashram, a temple. And then devotees, brahmacharis, so householders, anyone who is interested to do that, they take these books, they drive somewhere, they set up a table, or they get the bag, rolling bag ready, and they start going to approach people. So driving there, approaching people, speaking with people, convincing people, then packing up, then driving back. All of this are austerities, but purifying, tapo divyam. Collecting signatures, right? It's not easy. But one thing, lately I was at UCSD and I met one student. He was a football player and he was like almost 7 feet tall, really big guy. And many times it happens like that you give someone a book and you have to convince a person to get a book, and they would ask a question: Why do you want me to take this? What is the use of this? How can it benefit me? So I don't exactly remember what I said, but I just remember speaking to him in a, I guess, convincing way, and speaking about Krishna, speaking about the Bhagavad Gita, and it satisfied him. So I was kind of surprised. I directly just glorified whatever is in the books, and he accepted it. Okay, I will take it. I will take all these books. So this is nice. If we present this literature on the merit of the books, and if we just not speculate, if we just give people Krishna and speak about the philosophy in the Bhagavad Gita according to where people are at and what they're capable of hearing, then people can be convinced and they can take books. So we don't need to have any what do you call that? A mechanism. Like we don't need to have some kind of a tactic to do it. Like in a sense that some kind of a not maybe cheating tactic. Like we don't need to cheat people. We can just give books on the merit of the books. We can present philosophy in the way that it is described in Srila Prabhupada's purpose. It is becoming more and more relevant to people. So Srila Prabhupada is very happy when we distribute his books. It's a fact. We can't say that the opposite. One time he was in Radha Damodar temple, bringing all the devotees to the temple of Rupa Goswami, the place of Rupa Goswami. And he was giving lectures on nectar of devotion. And in one lecture, before he began the lecture, he got some letters from his disciples preaching in Midwest of America and also in Durban in South Africa. And he was so enthusiastic to read those letters. He asked for the name of the people, the 2 young Goswamis preaching this Krishna consciousness in the West, in South Africa. So Prabhupada said it is very encouraging to hear, that this Goswamis, this young Goswamis, nearly in their early 20s, are preaching and dedicating their life to this austerity. It's so satisfying to hear that. And then there were also devotees in Midwest America preaching the message of Krishna consciousness. Rishi Kumar Goswami and Haridas Brahmachari specifically. And so when we preach, what's unique about that service is that it forces you to surrender to Krishna, as I mentioned in the beginning, because you have no choice. You have to be ready. You have to be ready to face people. You have to be Krishna conscious. So that's an advantage of preaching, is that in preaching it might be difficult. You might feel like it's not easy, but Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Guru Parampara Srila Prabhupada gives us the strength when we preach. And the more we preach, the more strength and the more mercy we can receive by Guru Parampara. Just like often Srila Prabhupada mentions that if you chant without offenses, you can get mercy of Srila Haridas Thakur, and yes, you can experience pure chanting. So by going out, you can also receive the mercy, special mercy of Lord Nityananda, Gaura Nitai, Srila Prabhupada, because it is our center of our movement. One time, Tripurari Swami Goswami Maharaj, he was preaching in Radha Damodar Bus, and he came back to Los Angeles, and he had a Sankirtan meeting with devotees. And all of them were asking, "Oh, well, how are you so successful? What's your secret? Why are you able to give so many books? How can we be like you?" And he said something very simple. He said that we should just desire it and become an instrument in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's hand. So if we really desire to preach and to distribute, then the reciprocation is there if we're sincere. And you said that this movement, this Sankirtan, is not a part of our movement. It is this movement. It's not a part. It is the movement. It's the central activity of a Hare Krishna devotee. Another thing I was realizing that preaching helps you to train the mind. I wanted to read a few realizations from this wonderful book, Nectar of Book Distribution. It's different statements by Srila Prabhupada and also by followers of Srila Prabhupada, disciples and grand disciples, in regards to book distribution. It's a nice book. It's a thick book. A lot devotees can say about preaching and book distribution. One thing I wanted to start with, if you allow me, there's a place here, there's a part here in this book that is called Divine Austerity. Sankirtan is a divine austerity. Human life is meant for tapasya. This is from the purport of 5.1.1. Austerity and penance. By tapasya, one can get out of the material clutches. When one is situated in Krishna consciousness, devotional service, his happiness is guaranteed eternally. The living entity is seeking happiness life after life, but he can make a solution to all his problems simply by practicing bhakti yoga. And then he immediately becomes eligible to return home back to Godhead. And one time Srila Prabhupada said that if you voluntarily go to distribute books despite different circumstances and difficulties, then by this endeavor alone you will be eligible to go back home, back to Godhead. By this endeavor alone, if you day after day go out on Sankirtan and distribute these wonderful books. Bhagavad Gita also speaks about the austerity of the body, speech, and mind. We come into the temple and we offer obeisances to the deity, offer obeisances to senior Vaishnavas. That trains the body to eventually respect the Vaishnavas, to have affection for the Vaishnavas and for the deities. And then from having this affection, it starts just merely from offering obeisances, then it goes into our speech also. And when we properly understand the Siddhanta of Srimad Bhagavatam and also Bhagavad Gita, then we feel inspired to preach. We feel inspired to utilize this speech in glorifying Krishna. And that is a certain way to become free from the threefold miseries, the different challenges that material nature can give us. Because this austerity naturally situates us in the mode of goodness, or pure goodness. Actually, just goodness is not enough, as we'll learn. It's also, as mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, nibadnanti. It binds us to feeling proud, as Srila Prabhupada explains in one of the purports in the 14th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Sukham and jnana actually eventually, materially speaking, leads us to asukham and ajnana, simply because it turns into the mode of passion eventually, if there's no Krishna in the center. I feel proud by happiness that I get. I feel proud by knowledge that I have. And then it situates me in the mode of passion. And we know what mode of passion is. It's a dangerous quality. So, a few more things. Bhagavad Gita, and also in various places of Srimad Bhagavatam, we learn that the whole purpose of this tapo divyam, different austerities or different limbs of bhakti, they meant to employ our senses in devotional service. And when the senses are employed, we feel purification. Sarva padi vinirmuktam tad paretvana nirmalam hrishikena hrishikesha sevana bhakti ruchite. So in this way it pleases the master of the senses, Krishna. We get purified and get free from all the different upadhyas, different designations. And in the nectar of devotion we see that there are 64 limbs of bhakti, sadhana bhakti. 10 of them are pravritti, and then 10 of them nivritti. Then you have additional 44, of which 5 is the most prominent. And Ambarish Maharaj is participating in one of the prominent limb of bhakti, which is worshipping the deity. Right? So all of these limbs of bhakti are meant to purify us, and are meant to help us to be Krishna conscious. Also, Maharaj Ambarish is performing vrata of Ekadashi, observing fasting for the pleasure of Krishna, and that's one of the limbs of devotional service as well. Hari Vasara Samano, observing the fasting days of Ekadashi, and also days when there's a festival. For example, on the festival day we can also engage in more of activities of Shravanam Kirtanam. And most of the festival days we fast as well. So when we do not control our senses, lust agitates the senses and mind. When lust develops, intelligence is lust, and we fall from devotional service into Maya and suffer. And from that point, when we again come in touch with these material modes of nature, we have to make a very serious effort to drag ourselves back from Maya, back into being situated in Krishna consciousness. One devotee, Haripad Das, he used to distribute books in 80s and 90s and throughout beginning of 2000s. He was from Spain. He shares his realization about book distribution, and I'd like to read it. He says, the austerities in spiritual life are nectar compared with the austerities of the material world. Some of the special austerities are having to take cold showers sometimes. Maybe not all the time, right? How about taking a cold shower right now in the morning? That's probably not all of us are doing it. It's cold. So taking prasadam, sometimes you have to do it in different circumstances. Like on traveling Sankirtan, you have to take prasadam sometimes on the go, or you have to also cook prasadam for yourself. I mean, I've obviously offered to the deities, but it's additional, you can say, austerity. So he says, maybe taking prasadam on the highway and not having much time to yourself. So this is some of the austerities involved in, especially traveling Sankirtan. There are subtle austerities too. You have to control your mind, fix your attention. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita. In the beginning, Krishna consciousness is like poison for the attached mind, but then it becomes nectar. I always relate this understanding to Sankirtan. Every day the mind tries to play tricks on us. Don't go out, or go out late, stay, take more rest, stay in the car. You always kind of struggle with this desire of the mind, not to go out, not to do this austerity. So, but we have to again drag the mind from Maya, from being influenced by the modes of nature, and engage it in tapo divyam, or bhakti yogena. How does it say in the verse? 1 second. Tapo yuktena, bhakti yogena, tapo yuktena pativaha. So that is the best austerity, Bhakti Yogina. There's also a verse in the Bhagavad Gita, I'm sure you know this, that mentions Bhakti Yogena. Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityatam brahmabhyaya kalpate. So this Bhakti Yogena, performance of devotional activities for pleasure of Krishna, helps us to get free from influence of modes of nature and realization of Brahman. Realization of Krishna. So to continue reading this realization of Haripad Das, he says, everything except going out, the mind avoids that like poison. But as soon as you go out, you realize it's nectar. So of course you feel challenged, especially after certain days when you take some time off from Sankirtan. You feel challenged to go out. Once you distribute your first books, it actually feels so uplifting and encouraging, like that. And the mind avoids it like poison. But as soon as you go out, you realize it. And by experiencing it every day, you stop paying attention to the protesting mind. The mind is always protesting, right? And you just do it. And you know from the very beginning that it will be nectar. And then the mind loses its fears. And Sankirtan becomes natural and blissful. You get in the moment. They say that if you're distributing tons of books for a good donation at the end, it's considered to be a very easy day on Sankirtan. But if you have, if you don't bring too much Lakshmi and you don't distribute too many books, that is usually a very difficult day where you have to really convince yourself and drag the mind and really work with it, with that protesting nature of the mind. So. And although it is difficult and although the mind protests and we have to make effort to convince ourselves and the mind to preach and distribute books, it's actually a great impetus to be Krishna conscious and to remember Krishna. That's how when we say that Sankirtan is also, you realize Krishna there, or you Krishna conscious doing book distribution, although you just presenting books and might not be constantly thinking of Krishna, but you're doing that for the Lord. So therefore, it is an impetus for you to be Krishna conscious. And the special quality of book distribution is that I mentioned that it forces you to think of Krishna. It's as Vaisheshika Maharaj says, it's a high sadhana. It's in addition to our rounds and practice of the morning in this, chanting and hearing, it's also a high sadhana. It's a continuous practice. It helps you to be Krishna conscious. It helps you to please Krishna. So, and I'm sure devotees who go out, they experience the great mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu out on Sankirtan, because the words are coming to you. If you're not in the proper mood, the mood is coming. Mahaprabhu is very merciful. He gives special intelligence to be able to understand a person you're preaching to and to be able to see and where this person is at, so you can better present Krishna consciousness to that person, present these books to that person. And what I really appreciate about this service is that whatever theoretical knowledge that we learn in the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam becomes manifest, it becomes real on Sankirtan. And a very common example is 14th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which is mentioning about the modes of material nature. You can clearly see that these modes are functioning. They're spinning, so to say, within yourself. And they also are affecting people to a large degree. And you can notice it. You can notice by the way people look, by the way people speak, by the way people dress, and in many ways like that. And you become convinced in philosophy that it is real. Anytime that you feel discouraged, you can pick up Bhagavad Gita, read Bhagavad Gita, then go out on Sankirtan and see that this is reality. Bhagavad Gita, every single word of Bhagavad Gita is reality. So, yes, it's an austerity to face the public. We don't know what's going to happen. We might be refused, and we will actually. We get rejection, but rejection helps you to handle yourself, handle the mind, and it teaches you, yes, how to be a well-rounded person, spiritual person. So book distribution combined with the process of hearing and chanting, reading Srila Prabhupada's books is the best type of austerity, is the best type of practice that we can do to be Krishna conscious, like that. And last thing I'll read, thank you for your attention. I feel very encouraged by this verse. I hope that you also feel encouraged. In the 5th canto, chapter 6, called Activities of Lord Shibhadev, we have a few verses which speaks about how we should not trust the mind. And learning about the nature of the mind is obviously taking place when we seriously chant Hare Krishna mantra, associate with devotees in Sangha. So many of these anarthas become seen by devotees. We have the practice of anartha nivritti, but we should not forget about artha pravritti, cultivating favorable things and cultivating good qualities. So, and what helps to cultivate good qualities and get favorable experiences is that we control the mind. We don't give in to the mind, don't surrender to the mind. We rise above this platform. So this is what is said here, text number 2. Shukadev Goswami, he says, "My dear king, you have spoken correctly. However, after capturing animals, a cunning hunter does not put faith in them, for they might run away. Similarly, those who are advanced in spiritual life do not put faith in the mind. Indeed, they always remain vigilant and watch the mind's action." So just like a hunter who captures the animals, he doesn't trust them. Oh, okay, now you can be all right. You can just play on your own, and I trust you. No, he guards them like that. And so similarly, once we become a devotee, we should not just merely trust the mind simply because I am engaged in hearing and chanting. I should still make extra effort to control it, especially at the time when the mind is not not our friend. So in the purport, it says, Srila Prabhupada quotes a verse, 18.5, Bhagavad Gita, Yagyadana tapa karma na tyajam karim eva tat. That tapasya, sacrifice, charity is not given up by great souls. Even one who has renounced the world and has taken sannyas should not renounce chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. Renunciation does not mean that one has to renounce Sankirtan Yagya. So you never renounce Sankirtan Yagya. Similarly, one should not renounce charity or tapasya. The yoga system for control of the mind and senses must be strictly followed. So this is what Srila Prabhupada is stressing here, is that yes, we have to always hear, always chant attentively. Doesn't matter how advanced we are. The Sankirtan Yagya is the prime benediction of this movement. All learned, this is the next text, all learned scholars have given their opinion. The mind is by nature very restless, and one should not make friends with the mind. If we place full confidence in the mind, it may cheat us at any moment. Even Lord Shiva became agitated upon seeing the Mohini from a form of Lord Krishna. And so Bari Muni also fell down from the mature stage of yogic perfection, simply because they gave in to the mind. They trusted the mind. An unchaste woman is very easily carried away by paramours. And it sometimes happens that the husband is violently killed by the paramours. If the yogi gives his mind a chance and does not restrain it, his mind will give facility to enemies like lust, anger, greed, and they will doubtlessly kill the yogi. So the mind is the root cause of all these qualities, of all this lust, anger, pride, lamentation. And a combination of this creates a bondage for a living entity. Mamayavamsha Jivaloka, this verse, it says that we're struggling, Mana Shastranidayani, we're struggling with the mind and senses. That's the nature of the conditioned life, is that the struggle is always there. So the mind is the original cause of material bondage. It is followed by many enemies such as anger, pride, greed, lamentation, illusion, and fear. And the best way to control the mind is to engage it always in Krishna consciousness. And this verse, now, Savayamana Krishna Padara Vindayo. So since the followers of the mind bring about material bondage, we should be very careful not to trust the mind. And of course, the mind gives in to, especially lust. For example, there's Srimad Bhagavatam teaches that one should not be alone with a woman. Doesn't matter how old that woman is, because that will agitate the mind to a degree that lust might overpower the mind. And especially if you're not so well cultured and mature in spiritual life, it's so essential just to take that instructions as a very essential, important instruction, not to be alone with a woman, or generally even not to be alone by yourself too much. Always find solace in devotee association. That's as Balaram Prabhu was speaking from Harinam Chintamani, it is so essential to be in association with devotees, to properly engage in Nama Bhajan, to properly conduct the activities of Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam. And it's interesting how we see the contrast between these two characters of Ambarish Maharaj and Durvasa Muni. Ambarish Maharaj is a pure devotee. He has no material desires at all. We hear in this text, right? Sarvan Kaman Shanar Jahal. No material desires, simply by Savaimana Krishna Padaravinda, by engaging your senses and Bhakti Yoga, you become free from material desires. You get a higher taste. And then you have also Durvasa Muni, who is very austere, but maybe for the wrong reason. So they both perform austerities, but what the reason for those austerities? Even in practice of bhakti, the reason for austerities might be improperly understood. So we'll conclude here. Thank you for your attention. If you'd like to continue, take this further and discuss something, please do. That would be very nice.
I like the point about connecting that verse from the middle of the 18th chapter about tatsukam, satvikam. So happiness in the mode of goodness is like clearly associated with austerity, and then you connected that with how really any austerity in Krishna consciousness, maybe you didn't say that, you didn't say any, but at least when thinking about it, you give the example of book distribution in relation to that, how book distribution is something which is not something which you immediately are looking forward to doing necessarily, because it involves tension, it involves some anxiety and so on, and endeavor, energy, and so on. So you're about to distribute books or try to distribute books, and it seems, okay, it's very easy to not do it. It's like poison at first. But then afterward, you're always glad that you did. And so I was thinking about that and thinking that many austerities in Krishna consciousness that Srila Prabhupada included in this purport are like that. And so I'd like that example, that connection, that so many things may be like poison at first, difficult to get into, but you're always glad you did it. And speaking with guests is always like that. Going into the kitchen is like that. It's an intimidating thing. I don't have any experience dressing the deities or anything, so I imagine there may be some element of that too, but I don't know. But so I was appreciating that yes, there's these austerities, but because they are good austerities, you're always glad afterward that you did them. So it's encouraging, because you think about so many austerities in Krishna consciousness, and it's a bit discouraging that I might feel like I'm already struggling, and then I'm going to add some more things, some more ways to struggle. But so it was a nice thing to think about, that at least because these are good austerities, like the mode of goodness in general, you will be glad afterward. And so that was encouraging. One question I had was that you mentioned, or you quoted or paraphrased something Srila Prabhupada said about if you just go on distributing books, going back to Godhead is guaranteed. Mm-hmm. What was the reference? Was that pretty much what it was? Am I accurate?
Yeah, that's it.
So a natural question that comes in my mind is, do we really think that's true? Absolutely. And if so, how? For instance, we can all at least, without trying to use examples, we can at least all hypothetically think of a devotee who distributes books for 50 years and does not seem % Krishna conscious at the time of their departure. Or they just go on distributing books until they die, and that's maybe 10 years of their life, whatever. And it's hard for me to convince myself that, yes, absolutely, that person, they went back to Godhead guaranteed, because they just went on distributing books. And you see people who even distribute books year after year after year, or they've distributed books for so many years, and you still see, unless you're going to try very hard to convince yourself otherwise, that there are some pretty obvious anarthas going on. And so then how do you understand that they're just going straight back to Godhead despite all of those anarthas? Or same thing, that's book distribution. We may find that. But what about other things? Someone could be a pujari for 50 years, just going on with their deity worship. And you could legitimately say, if you just go on with your deity worship, just be steady in your service, then back to Godhead isn't guaranteed. And there's sense to that. But at the same time, to say guaranteed absolutely, I don't know how to square that. Mm-hmm. Do we think that all the devotees who passed away while engaging in book distribution went straight back to Godhead? I don't really have that faith. Do you have something to say on that? Otherwise, I have some thoughts. But
I have a lot to say, but I'm trying to see how to word it. One thing, this is the direct quote. Srila Prabhupada says, "I'm so much pleased upon all of the boys and girls in Los Angeles and all over the world who are understanding and appreciating the unique quality of our transcendental literature and voluntarily going out to distribute books despite all circumstances of difficulty. By this effort alone, they are sure to go back home, back to Godhead." First thing I can say is that from my realization, that maybe it's imperfect, but I have full faith in Srila Prabhupada and his statements, and I don't doubt his statements, even if they seem materially illogical. So that's the first thing. And second thing is that just like, for example, when we chant Hare Krishna mantra, what's the indication that we're pleasing Krishna is that we want to chant more, right? So when we finish our rounds, we want to chant more Harinam. So similarly, if you're distributing books and if you develop a taste, since book distribution, these books are actually recorded kirtan. Srila Prabhupada would say it's not different from chanting, which is Yuga Dharma. So when you distribute books, it's the best way to worship Krishna. And if you have a taste for this, sincere taste, you go out and do this, that's a guarantee that you please Krishna. And if you please Krishna, although maybe you're not thoroughly mature in your qualities, but Krishna can be merciful and take you back home to God still, even if you have imperfect qualities. Even from sadhana bhakti, you can perform pure devotional service. That's the understanding. I'm so much pleased upon all the boys and girls in Los Angeles and all over the world who are understanding and appreciating the unique quality of our transcendental literature and voluntarily going out to distribute books despite all circumstances of difficulty. By this effort alone, they are sure to go back home, back to Godhead. By this effort alone. Voluntarily going out. So those are some thoughts.
Yeah, one thing, because we could say that I don't doubt Srila Prabhupada's statements. I accept them all. I accept everything he says. And then if someone asks another question, which seems to be intimately tied with that other statement, then we may kind of show other convictions. So for instance, if I say, "Do you accept the statement of Srila Prabhupada's as it is?" And you say, "Of course, I do." And then if I say, "Do you accept that every devotee who died as a book distributor went back to Godhead?" Would you say yes?
If he did it with a taste, there is a yes.
Every book distributor who died with a taste for book distribution went back to Godhead. That's your conviction?
That's my conviction. That's because following the statement of Srila Prabhupada. If you dedicate your life to preaching like that, yes.
So that's the error that I see in the kind of the hermeneutical approach to understanding Srila Prabhupada, because if we just understand it like that, then Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu goes out the window. Other statements by Srila Prabhupada, they have to be % Krishna consciousness, % Krishna conscious go out the window. So there can be some, it's a tricky thing, admittedly, understanding how to not reject, not betray Srila Prabhupada's statements, and at the same time, not let fidelity to one of Srila Prabhupada's statements create infidelity to another point, to Shastra or other statements by Srila Prabhupada. So this is a tricky one for me, because, or not so tricky, but I mean that statement in and of itself is something like in this purport, Srila Prabhupada says that such austerity leads one to the constitutional position of devotional service. So that's pretty clear, that any austerity taken up in Krishna consciousness is leading one to the constitutional position of devotional service. That's quite obvious. That's an easily confirmed or accepted absolute statement that austerity taken up in Krishna consciousness is leading one to one's constitutional position. And so if you just go on doing it, then you're only coming closer and closer and closer and closer to your constitutional position back in the spiritual world. I won't say more actually on that right now, just to be safe.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for saying this. I can say that you said that we throw out the window Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, but another argument could be that Srila Prabhupada is a pure devotee, and so he has perfectly understood the teachings of Bhakti, Rasamrita Sindhu, and whatever he says is not contradicting the teachings of Rupa Goswami. I mean, he had received darshan of Rupa Goswami. So he is very close with Rupa Goswami. And why would he say something that would be contradicting to the statements of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu?
Yeah, when we run into these things where Srila Prabhupada is making a statement and it seems to contradict or appear different from a statement in, let's say, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu or Srimad Bhagavatam, then we could go the route of accepting what Srila Prabhupada said. Let's take the most literal approach, the most absolute and literal approach to what Srila Prabhupada said, and therefore, what do I have to do? I have to reinterpret Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu or Srimad Bhagavatam, even many statements within them, to accommodate this statement by Srila Prabhupada. Or another route, I'm not saying it's either one or the other all the time, but another route could be understanding Srila Prabhupada's statements in light of Shastra. And clearly there needs to be some balance between the two. But some may argue that that there can certainly be an imbalance in looking at a statement, an absolute statement by Srila Prabhupada, and then thinking, okay, now we have to reinterpret what seems to be kind of clearly delineated in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, because Srila Prabhupada said this, and he must understand the real purport of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He must be giving the real purport, or the clearest understanding of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, or what it takes to go back to Godhead and so on. But let's say you did go that route still, where we say, okay, well, we'll take the most literalist approach to Srila Prabhupada's statements, and then through that kind of be looser with interpreting Shastra, or writings of Goswamis. But then still you're in a pickle when you run up against other statements by Srila Prabhupada himself, which seem to contradict that. So then what do you do? For instance, yes.
Would you like to give an example?
Srila Prabhupada saying that you must be % Krishna conscious to go back to Godhead. Mm-hmm. Or on the level of bhava, you still need to get to prema. And you look at the pastime of Bharat Maharaj and his discussion of that he was on bhava, but he fell down, of course. Or maybe a better one is, even if you look at the letter to Jayananda Prabhu, that Srila Prabhupada acknowledged that he may even go to the heavenly planets. I mean, whom did Srila Prabhupada acknowledge as more saintly than Jayananda Prabhu? And still, he in this letter to him after he died, saying, if you may have some material desires still, and you may go to the heavenly planets, and hopefully from there you can go back to the spiritual world. But still, Srila Prabhupada had faith that he didn't do that he actually went back to the spiritual world. Mm-hmm. For different reasons. Srila Prabhupada had that faith and wrote that in the letter. For a better example, for stronger examples, I'd have to find something. I think
you go in the direction of back to Godhead, and also I was thinking right now that the primary, the essence of nectar of devotion is pure devotional service, and the limbs of devotional service, which are mentioned there, one of which is to accept Guru Ashraya or Guru Pada Ashraya. So if I accept the statements of my spiritual master, which is taught in Nectar of Devotion and emphasized, then even if I blindly follow, like there's statements like that, if I blindly follow Srila Prabhupada's statements, I can be assured of success.
Well, I don't know if I'd jai that. Chad said jai to that. Now, one thing is, yes, Guru Padashraya, though, is not meant to be a replacement for understanding the Shastra. So, for instance, one could have full faith in their guru but not understand his own statements. And so that isn't helping one. Actually, one anartha, like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur talks about, one anartha is misunderstanding Shastra, misunderstanding the actual philosophy of Krishna consciousness. Actually, an anartha in and of itself. So one could have full faith in their guru, but actually, as a disciple, you are duty-bound to make sure you're understanding your own guru's instructions properly. Not just that, well, I accepted what he said, I didn't deny what he said, but did you understand it properly in the first place? You also have an obligation to make sure we understand it too. But that's a good point. We don't want to lose our, like was mentioned, our fidelity to our guru. So I don't think that's not the question, that's not like the option I'm proposing. But rather, how do we harmonize or accept different statements by the same guru, by the same acharya, and accept the Shastra which he himself told us to accept?
Yeah.
So that's there. And there are different ways where Srila Prabhupada makes absolute statements, and we have to understand how that's the case. And I admit I'm blanking out on some of those different examples of absolute statements. So maybe for class tomorrow I can think of something.
Yeah, alignment with of statements of Srila Prabhupada with Shastra, properly understanding Srila Prabhupada. In this regard, we have the whole thick book of realizations of devotees who go out on Sankirtan, have faith in the statements, and experience transcendental emotions, and they are obviously advancing very nicely in Krishna consciousness. And upon leaving their body, we also have many examples of devotees leaving their body who are Sankirtan devotees who are achieving the successful destination, at least by the symptoms of how Krishna conscious they are at the passing. So I am personally convinced.
I'm honestly a bit concerned. I almost feel like we're almost gaslighting ourselves if we're going to say that all of the devotees in that book who went on attributing books went back to Godhead after that one life. And to say that we must have faith in that, and that's actually a more impressive sign of our faith or our conviction of Krishna conscious, to me, I find kind of concerning. I don't see it as a testament to our faith, but maybe something else.
I personally do.
So again, you're saying that all the devotees who passed away
in the direction of back to Godhead, yes.
Okay. In the direction of back to Godhead is not the same thing as back to God. That's like quite a thing to sneak in there. In the direction of back to Godhead, undoubtedly. But back to Godhead, this life, or what? How do you understand that statement?
I accept the statement of Srila Prabhupada as true.
Do you think that I do not accept the statements of Srila Prabhupada as true?
Say it again.
Do you think I do not accept the statements of Srila Prabhupada as true?
Well, you doubt the statement.
I'm wondering how you understand this statement in light of other statements about what it takes to go back to Godhead after one life. So, are you saying that we should accept that we, in the line of having Guru Parashraya, that we are expected to accept that all of the devotees in ISKCON who passed away or will pass away, while still engaged in book distribution, are going straight back home, back to Godhead? Is that your understanding, or are you saying that they are going in the direction of back to Godhead?
Yeah,
he didn't say in this lifetime.
So definitely in the direction of back to Godhead. That is my understanding, and in some cases directly going back to Godhead.
Yeah, well, that's quite a softer version of it. Yeah, I mean that every devotee who passes away engaged in devotional service takes up devotional service. I mean, I don't think anybody here is doubting that. So if that's all we're saying, that a devotee takes up where they left off, then that's an uncontroversial statement. And the same would apply to pujaris, the same would apply to managers and so on, who pass away engaged in devotional service. So maybe that was just a miscommunication when I asked initially, how do you understand this statement about if you just go on shooting books, going back to Godhead is guaranteed? You said you accept it. I said, do you accept that all of the devotees who passed away while engaged in book distribution went back to Godhead? You said yes. As part of accepting Srila Prabhupada, you accept that statement. So it seemed to me that you were interpreting it like that. So if that's not the case, then that doesn't concern me as much. That doesn't surprise me as much. Or maybe there's been a conversion within this one conversation.
I definitely accept the statement as it's guaranteed. But what will it happen? That is nothing is about that is mentioned in that statement.
Yeah.
But definitely you're going in that direction, and you're getting the necessary mercy to eventually get
Could
there.
you change direction and not go back to Godhead anytime soon?
Well, it depends on your sincerity and how you take up Krishna consciousness.
Right. So I think that's what I mean. It's an absolute statement. Could a person engaged in book distribution right now become an out-and-out demon? Yes, they could.
Yeah.
And even you could say, yeah, this lifetime, if they die, this lifetime not. But even next lifetime, if they die, they can take up where they left off. The next lifetime, they can deviate. You could say, therefore, I think that statement is no stronger or more absolute than the statement Srila Prabhupada put here in this purport, that such austerity leads one to the constitutional position of devotional service. Book distribution leads one to the constitutional position of devotional service. Pujari Seva does. Harinam Sankirtan does. And if you just go on purifying. If you just go on, then inevitably, over time, you must get to the point where there's nothing left to purify. but you have to go on until you're 7% purified. So I don't think that statement in this purport, or even that statement that you read, really contradicts that idea. But I think that people can hear that statement and then develop an incorrect, an immature conviction that, yes, if I die a book distributor, I'm going straight back home, back to Godhead. I'm necessarily going, if I just go on distributing books, I'm necessarily, I mean, then also, what does it mean to distribute books? Or what does it mean to be a pujari? What does it mean to be a Harinam Sankirtan leader? You know? Well, so, like there are clearly qualifications to these things too, and therefore that's why I was kind of wondering, like, are you encouraging us or teaching us to have faith that people who die as book distributors necessarily go back home back to Godhead? And you said yes, that's what I was taking exception to. I think we're gaslighting ourselves if we teach ourselves that, and I don't think it's even consistent with Shastra or Srila Prabhupada's own statements.
On one occasion, I mentioned also that if you're distributing books and give your life to the mission of Sankirtan Yagya book distribution, then you can experience immense, certainly very special mercy of Lord Nityananda and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And one statement that Srila Prabhupada says is that he can force you to be fully Krishna conscious and to think of Lord Chaitanya or Lord Krishna at the time of passing. So that's I see it as a special mercy in this age of Yuga Dharma to engage in Sankirtan. And because it's special, there's a chance that you can go back to Godhead in this life, or there's a chance that you can go back to Godhead and develop necessary qualities, necessary mercy quicker.
I guess I'm just still not, maybe I need to find a reference that one can go back to Godhead without wanting it 100%. I guess that's, or a statement that if you just go on distributing books, regardless of various other regardless of what stage you are in an artinivriti or before that or after that, then if you just go on distributing books, then necessarily then, at the time of death, you will only want to go back home back to Godhead. So maybe there's a statement like that in Kali, but it just seems like Bhakti Samrita Sindhu isn't written for like past yugas. Bhakti Samrita Sindhu talking about that to go back to spiritual world, you need to be at the level of prema. You get to prema by going these different steps, by overcoming an artinivriti. It was written, not so long ago. It's a few hundred years ago. So that outline is written for the Kali Yuga. There's always mercy, that's there too, yeah. Yeah. And I'm mostly asking, I'm not sure if I wouldn't be prepared to give a seminar on this or anything like that. That's why I'm mostly asking, but yeah, it does trip me up and I get a little concerned when savas are thrown out there and I'm not sure, it's not totally clear how we're supposed to be accepting it. And then if you kind of check in and, then it's like it is kind of emphasized, yes, to accept it like this. Then that. So initially, your statement that we should be accepting it, if we have faith in Srila Prabhupada's words, that we should be accepting it, that book distributors are going back to home, back to Godhead, the devotees who died distributing books previously have gone back to Godhead, your conviction of that, I think that's an incorrect conviction, but if maybe someone could present to me evidence otherwise. But your later statement that, well, they're in the path back to Godhead, that's certainly, I think we can absolutely accept that.
That's what I've heard as realizations from senior devotees.
Well, yeah, even Bhagavad Gita is saying that's right up there in Bhagavad Gita that you just take on, what if you're engaging in devotional service but you don't become perfect? Then okay, you're born in a good family and you carry on where you left off. Yeah. But
I wouldn't say we, but I don't understand the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how powerful and how grand it is. I don't understand. So, but I accept that mercy is powerful. And if from the moment when I seriously engage in Krishna consciousness, if I actively dedicate myself to the life of this mission of Harinam Sankirtan, this Yuga Dharma, following in the footsteps of previous acharyas, those Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Guru Parampara, right, Srila Prabhupada, then having faith and actively engaging in the mission qualifies you to receive that mercy. And I have faith in that. So
yeah, mercy is definitely a big part of it. Yeah, that's a good point.
I guess I see it as in a positive way that it's there for us, and why not participate in this? You know, we should try to do it and discuss. Like again, it's very nice to encourage discussion about understanding of Srila Prabhupada's statements and how how can we approach that with proper vision, you know, according to Shastra, according to what we learn in Nectar of Devotion. So,
yeah, it's a good place to end. That mercy aspect is part of the puzzle and understanding what's going on, and how and what it takes and so on. So maybe that's. Yeah.
So let's be convinced at least to try to follow the statements and with hope be able to get that mercy, and please Srila Prabhupada, please the founder Acharya of ISKCON.
And even without a thorough, just that statement in today's purport alone is enough to be so optimistic that if you just continue, there's only benefit. If you just continue, you're only coming closer and closer and closer to your constitutional position. Whether or not we're going to make a claim right now that it's this lifetime or in future lifetimes, if you just continue, clearly if you just continue, you know, you're just getting closer and closer, less and less impurities, you know, and therefore it's guaranteed if you just continue. If you don't fail and change direction, it's only guaranteed.
Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.